Okay, we are filming. We are on a different camera today because apparently I was a numbnuts and I forgot to empty out my SD card on the fisheye one, so we're doing this and hopefully this will be alright. It is what is it today? It is I'm just going to say generically the 17th of March. It is that time of year when it starts to show a ray of hope of getting warmer. It's probably about 52 today. It's not bad. It's not warm. It's not cold. It's sunny out. So there's that. If I am distracted, it's because I woke up to a facilities-related issue where I live. That's now being addressed after nobody picked up the fucking phone for 90 minutes. But anyway, aside from that, let's get moving. Let's focus on the matter at hand. We are in the local vigilance area today. We are going to do another pattern sweep. We are rapidly coming up to the point where I am going to be heading back north, and it's also going to be turkey season up there, so there's that, and we'll do some other updates too, and probably a little bit of a rant because now I'm in that kind of a mood. Let's get moving. Let's see what we find, and we'll just keep going. Thanks. And we're back. Hopefully, again, I didn't empty out my SD card on the other camera, so we're using this one. Last time I used this one, it was a little bit muffled because I have the waterproof case on it, but that's how I screw it into the microphone stand thing. And hopefully not the case. There's not really any volume control I have immediate access to on this, so we're making do, basically. That being said, moving on from my morning, I won't call it a debacle, I'll call it more just like crappy service on the part of certain people that will remain nameless, lest I get more annoyed about it. But that's not my rant. I'm in a ranting mood, so we're going to get the rant out of the way first, and that would be this. I don't know if the response is a trolling campaign or what exactly, but on Facebook, my groups all of a sudden are being subjected to people asking inane questions that if you bothered to read the fucking about for the group, you'd realize we are not a woo group. We are one that goes pretty much the other way with our take on the subject of Bigfoot and the related phenomenon thereof, and it leads me to ask, why do you come into our group and ask these questions and try to push a fucking agenda that the group does not have any fucking interest in, when there's a million mother effing groups out there that already cater to this bullshit fucking philosophy and way of thinking? Why? What do you not understand? If you don't have fantastic proof to back up your fantastic claims, all you have are claims. It's been that way forever. And yet you come into the group and you try to push your agenda, and it's not wanted. You can go into my group and you can look down somewhere in the interface. There's a big blue button that says Create Group. If you want to push your own narrative, you can literally make your own group to do so. You don't need to pollute mine with your bullshit, because that's what the woo is until proven otherwise. And as much as I hate to use I've been doing this for so long, I've been doing this for a long time, and I have yet to see proof. You're talking 20 years of this, and I have yet to see proof of the woo. I don't care if it's orbs, I don't care if it's portal jumping bullshit, I don't care if it's mind speak, which is actually properly called telepathy for those of you that aren't freaking brain dead rednecks. I'm sorry if I'm in a mood, but I'm not going to sugarcoat shit today. And if you're pushing Zorth and that bullshit, get some fucking mental help. If you are actually an adherent of the freaking cult of Zorth, my God, you need to freaking get your head out of your ass and find yourself a goddamn therapist worth a damn and get your head right. What the fuck is wrong with you? Would seem I am in a bit of a mood. So that is my rant for the day. It seems like all of a sudden in the last 4 or 5 days, you got people coming in. Does anyone here believe in Dogman? Do you believe in Portal? No, we don't. So why are you here? We don't purport that is what this is. And whether you like it or not, there is a growing freaking aggravated minority in the community that is sick and tired of people freaking polluting the white noise with the fucking bullshit that you are perpetuating or attempting to. Until you can post proof of your claims, that is all it is bullshit. If you can prove me wrong, I'll rethink my stance. You have yet to do so. Why is this so hard? And rant. And moving on. Announcements of things coming up. Kind of a repeat of last week, probably. Weather, as you can see, is getting warmer. There's no crappy little friggin' patches of late winter snow or crust as we get down here. And this week, I have obligations local. Next week, probably the same. The week after that, we may hear the siren call of the north and head back north into Vermont and other surrounding areas. And during that time, I am building my field research computer, which ironically is probably about a third done right now. I should probably post pictures of this. And basically, it is going to be a place where I record infrasonic stuff and do real-time analysis or post-mortem analysis of recordings thereof. Because that is the one sort of kind of wooish thing I've already covered. I already told you why it's plausible in science, and there is proof to back it up, as opposed to all the other nonsense. That being said, that's one aspect of it. The other aspect will be a base station for, if I can get the thing configured right, there's like the whole LoRaWAN radio frequency. I'll have a mesh net of cameras or other related equipment out there doing things of a recording nature too. And I will be fine-tuning that as the early spring comes into summer, and hopefully by the time I'm up there on a regular basis, I'll have this process fine-tuned and have results to share with folks. So that's the immediate future. Also, when it's May, you'll have turkey season, so I'll be doing some hunting and fishing in between too. Not that that's Bigfoot related, but that's not my sole focus, so that's how that is. If anyone was offended by the rant this week, tough. I'm in a mood and I am bored with it. Until you can prove to me otherwise. There ain't no Dogman, there ain't no Zorth, there ain't no 13 Elders of nonsense, and there ain't no friggin' portals or orbs or anything else. Post proof, or just, at least in my direction, shut up about it and keep it the hell off my fucking page, because I'm sick of it. Alright? It ain't there, and that's not what this is. And to every person out there pushing a bullshit narrative without the proof, you're not helping. You're really not. And I don't mean to keep beating on this, but I really, it has become a frustrating thing that people are drowning the subject out with the bullshit. And honestly, somebody said it about a week and a half ago. That's why the mainstream doesn't take us seriously. Because of people pushing bullshit. Either due to an ability to want to freaking exploit the narrative and make money, or because you have a mental problem. I'll say it again, there is a very legitimate study to be had in the mental health aspects of believing in Bigfoot. Or related phenomenon. It could be conspiracy theories, it could be UFOs, it could be fucking flat earth nonsense, Atlantis, or anything else. Although admittedly it's been a long time since I have come across a strong believer in anything about Atlantis or any of that nonsense, but that usually segues right into flat, hollow earth, donut-shaped universe nonsense. Once you're that far down the rabbit hole, I'm not going to even talk to you because I got things to do. So, going forward, take the advice. If you watch the video, listen to the video's message and comprehend. We are not about the woo. We're not going to be. You spreading your little sermon of silliness is not going to freaking sway me without proof. Simply put, boys and girls, an engineer that I used to work with had a very lovely poster on the side of his office wall. Faith in God, everybody else bring data that we can crunch. That's how this works. You want to have all the lonely people on your groups, and yes, if you have a group with 5,000 members or more, and you're pushing the bullshit, and they're buying into it, all the power to you. You're one hell of a salesman. You probably could sell a hell of a timeshare. Or a used car. You get what I'm saying. But it doesn't make it so. Some of us are not in this for the money or the adoration or social climbing or any of that loveliness. We're here to solve this thing, or we're here to at least find the truth of it. It's sad that we're now in the minority. What you're looking at right there is exactly what the woo amounts to without proof. I don't need to freaking swear anymore. I have visual aids. I'm going to take a segment break and try to move into a more productive frame of mind than the annoying morning I'm having. We'll be back in a wee bit. Okay, we're back, and I am doing something a little bit more productive scientifically. I'm basically doing some, interestingly enough, my talking doesn't seem to affect the volume level. I'm doing some infrasonic recording just to kind of get a baseline of normal background, forest background noise, for lack of a better way of putting it, and do something productive with my time out here while I'm looking for other signs of activity, although this has been a quiet area this year. It's also been a mild winter, which usually does not bode well if it's been mild up north, which it has been for the most part. Which begs the question, why didn't I go north during the winter more? Basically, I just didn't get there. So I'm going to let this go and let it do its thing. And I mean, right now we are averaging we're in normal sonic realms. Nothing really seems infrasonic right now. It's like normally for infrasonic you want something between like 20 hertz or less, and everything right now is well in advance of that for the most part. So we'll keep an eye on it, but I'm not really expecting any major data to occur today because of that. More an exercise in passive recording to see if anything does happen, which I do most of the time, but normally I will not worry about it if there's no obvious interesting phenomenon. Like I said, when I've had the pulsing noise in this area, the only thing going on right now that's remotely interesting, there's probably some waterfowl over there, or if you look behind, you can see immediately behind where that beaver lodge is, there's another pond or wetland over there. There's probably ducks between here and there. I don't immediately see them, but I can hear them quacking and squabbling over food or whatever, so they are there. Find a stable bit of stand on. Also, not this week, maybe next week or thereafter, you're going to probably have to allow for deer hunters too, because we do have a abbreviated April deer season and such, and they'll be around, so that's something to be aware of too, as far as being aware of your surroundings out here. Other than that, it looks to be a quiet day. I'm looking for the ducks. I don't see them. Probably nothing more than a bunch of talkative mallards. At least in the last week or two, I haven't seen people, again, desperately playing at the sticks club, because that's probably my biggest peeve in the woo right now. It's just, they're desperately trying to make this a mainstream thing, and yet there's no evidence that shows a large, hairy forest creature arranging stick art. None. Somebody made this assertion or this hypothesis on the internet at one point. And due to this lovely thing called internet copycatism, which is a thing, because why else do you think that aliens are gray with big heads and big black soulless eyes and gray skin? Before then, the amount of alien encounter stories had such a lovely, rich, entertaining diversity of appearances. You had the little goblin guys that terrorized a family. You've got weird bullet-headed robot things that pop out of the saucer and all that. And all of a sudden, they're just like gray dudes. little gray dudes. Not even little green men, little gray men. And I don't buy it. Because everybody on the internet said it doesn't make it so. It makes it conformist. It's an exercise in human conformity, basically. And if I said this before, I'm saying it again this week. The reason I'm not more into UFOs beyond the Sky 360 level, and although those guys have some interesting cyberdeck technology, I might try to replicate it sometime. If I have more room to do so, because they're doing things with like satellite tracking stuff, and in my current living situation, I just don't have the time and the resources to do that, or honestly, the inclination. But the fact they're doing that is pretty cool. I do keep abreast of their use of various technology, and I look for avenues where I can have a parallel utilization of things, because a lot of the DIY electronic stuff I find myself getting into a new hobby with. You can conceivably, although not being field tested, I can't gauge the capability of a homemade DIY Raspberry Pi Zero based night vision trail camera versus like a professional one. Probably it's not going to be as good, but the difference is a good trail cam with like the SIM card and all that loveliness that you can call home with is going to probably cost you, aside from the calling plan, because you do need a phone plan for that, believe it or not, is a couple $100, whereas you can make a cheap, quick and easy one from the Pi and the camera module, if you know what you're doing, for about $40. How good it is, I have not conducted this yet. I may make one or two just for the exercise. But the thing is, with the tinker factor with this kind of an approach, you can also plug in audio recording. You can plug in night vision. There somewhere is also a thermal image lens that you can put in there. So you can actually have a FLIR trail camera if you're willing to spend the money. The lens on that obviously is a little bit more, because the difference in price for night vision versus FLIR, if you're not aware, FLIR being the company that first made thermal image like more commercially available, they kind of took on the name, kind of like Kleenex did or Taser did. I mentioned Taser because Team Taser got threatened with a lawsuit for using the word taser, believe it or not. And little known fact from Bigfooting lore, the point being that that's going to cost you more, but it's still something you can do for less than $150 more than likely. But you can add things like, I mentioned LoRaWAN radio, so you have a transponder that's plugged into all your other electronics, conceivably with fine-tuning. You have a base station back at your camp, and the thing is at the very least giving you a heartbeat that it's up and running, and if you could tie that into, there's some way to automate an alert for a hit when the motion sensor gets kicked off. You have real-time observation of a situation from base camp. If you had like a mesh net of like, say, anywhere from 5 to 10 cameras out, you can have a network around your campsite of probably, out in line of sight, probably good 5 kilometers, which isn't too shabby for surveillance. Because most people don't actively go out and do night hikes as the rule, and for whatever reason, some people aren't comfortable doing it, other people are, I hate to say it, but afraid of the dark. It is what it is. To that end, psychologically speaking, if you're out in the dark, I'm going to do this for effect. You see everything you see out here right now? When it's dark out, this doesn't magically become infested with monsters that hid under your bed as a kid. It's just a lot of this is just harder to see your way through, and you're more likely to bump into shit, but it's not really any different. If you can get past that mental hurdle, it's actually rather peaceful out here at night, because nobody out here, as a rule, is out here except for you and whatever's looking around foraging for food. And even if you do have an animal encounter, up to and including a black bear, it's out foraging for food. It's probably not that interested in you. With the exception of that little bastard of a weasel back in 2016 who wouldn't let me get any sleep because he was curious and wanted to be my friend. I just wasn't offered a choice in the matter. And and I don't mean I say that facetiously. I mean, actually, he didn't really do. It's kind of creepy to be to be lying in a hammock trying to sleep and literally feel this little weasel guy freaking sniffing the side of your head to the point of physical contact with your temple. But in the end, it was a matter that he was using me for cover, probably to hunt around our camp. Because, ironically, my campsite mates they had left some food out, and he didn't get into it. That I could tell he was actively hunting shit. Story from the field. Rather than ramble, I'm going to take another segment break. This is going to be kind of choppy because this camera has a less tested battery life, and I'd rather just do a segment break and then have it end at that point smoothly than have that like rapid just cut off because your stupid card was full or something. And when I get home, kick me in the ass mentally if I don't do it myself, if I forget to freaking empty out the card again, because the fact that I forgot this week is solely on me. I forgot. Anyway. Okay, we're back. It's a quiet day out here. I checked my recordings for the infrasound, and there really isn't anything infrasonic going on today. Everything's well within normal hertz range and all that. So what you have is everyday quiet day in the woods, background noise level stuff. You've got chattery ducks over there somewhere, and you've got... I haven't heard any turkey or anything like that. There was a woodpecker, okay, now I'm French about it, although I am partially French. But I heard a woodpecker over in that direction. That's really about it. It's a partially cloudy kind of day today, and not really a lot going on, so I'm going to say again, I'm going to keep this one short again because the camera says I got about half a thing of battery life, but if I remember right, this goes for about 90 minutes, give or take. But I remember this one, this is the newer of the two versions of this. It's a knockoff GoPro. Its older cousin would cut out before its time was up, which is kind of what you get when you pay for the knockoff and not the real thing. But I'm not going to spend $450 on a GoPro when this thing does 99.9% of all the same things for a tenth the price. Sorry, not sorry. That's just being thrifty with your money, and I won't apologize for that. That being said, I've covered about all I can. What I might do, just for the sake of bleeps and giggles, is when I get the CyberDeck fully completed for the base computer thing, maybe I'll do a visual tour of that just for something different and break up the tone of this. That's something that would maybe appeal to field gear type guys and what I refer to as gear geeks, but also to techie folk as well, because basically it is going to be a rugged style computer inside of a they call it a Pelican case. It's like a hard shell kind of carrying case for things like cameras, drones, guns and ammunition, this kind of thing. And it's like a big, really, really thick reinforced lunchbox looking thing. But it's waterproof, and it keeps things like that out of the elements. And I'm going to do something I haven't seen anyone else do with it, since I'm going to have it outside a decent amount of the time, and that is I'm going to give it a solar panel in order to, in the summer when you're up in Vermont and the such, and you're not using it until nighttime, during the daytime you let it charge so you have a full charge for the nighttime. Thought that'd be kind of a nifty thing to do on the fly in the middle of nowhere, since it is going to be geared towards outdoor field research for the most part. So maybe I'll do that. In the meantime, I think we're about where we're going to be unless something incredible happens on the way out, during which time I'd come back and do an addendum. But right now, this is going to be my outro. I am going to, again, say, yeah, it was a ranty one because my morning started off kind of, to be honest, and time out in the woods gives you peace, so maybe it'll get better from here. This was not a bad way to handle that. What needed to get handled back home did. I did verify that. I'm not so far out in the woods in this area that I don't have a signal, so I was able to do that. Oh, I do have one more rant on the way out, and this is one that if you're on Facebook and you see these ads for the Rapid radios, don't buy these goddamn things. It's a scam. If you actually read what this thing is, they want you to buy a so-called freaking radio that is not tied to any cell carrier, which right there tells you it's not a radio, because they're not. But they cost like 400 friggin' bucks. It runs on LTE, which is 4G, and it needs a SIM card. It's a fucking cell phone. It's a feature poor cell phone that you need a carrier plan to have. And they're marketing these things to prepper types that are basically, okay, well, when the shit hits the fan, guess what? When the shit hits the fan, more likely than not, your LTG network is not going to be up. So your lovely little low-end cell phone that you paid way too much for ain't going to work. And half the ads, just to make it proof, if you look at what they're actually showing you, it's a Baofeng radio. It's a cheap Chinese-made radio you can get for 20 bucks. I have one of them, and they work okay, but the point is, it's a fucking radio. It's basically a ham radio handset that plays into GRMS and FRS and presumably CBRS, which is CB radio frequency bands. And so, not like I know anything about this stuff, but it's a UHF, VHF radio, whereas this thing's a cell phone. They're trying to take your money, and if you bought one of these things, I'm sorry, but you're a sucker. You got played. It ain't unlimited range. It's a cell phone. If the networks are down, so is it. It's a brick. A walkie-talkie made by Vannington or Baofeng or any of the other ones out there making that stuff. Shit hits the fan. Radios will still work provided you have people in a network that can use them. There's your difference. Are they going to have unlimited range? No. But there you go. And as a license, I'll take you through Radio 101. CBRS is CB radio, and they're still out there. It's still a thing, apparently. I don't know who's using it, but you don't need a license. Anyone can have a full-on, what they call a radio base station. You can have one and broadcast your merry contentment, so long as you are on the CB. I just played into a radio rant. Okay, so we're going to go through that. And that one, you need no license. Ham radio, you should know you need a license, you need to pass a test, and then you can get they have like a technicians, a master technician. There's like 3 or 4 different ranks for ham radio related licensing. The fun that I have with this is when you get into the FRS and the GRMS related, because GRMS, unlike ham radio, you need to have a license, but there's no test for it. You just basically are giving the government 75 bucks at its current iteration. Whereas FRS and GRMS basically dance around the same spectrum of bands of frequencies. FRS, you don't need a license. One, you do. I can only guess that the difference between the two is the power that you're broadcasting at. I've never heard of anyone being pinched for... Hello. I've never heard of anyone getting pinched for GRMS radio without a license. It's a possibility. I mean, I'll say this as an observation, not an encouragement, but if you were using ham radio frequencies as basically as a basis for like walkie-talkie communication in the woods, like the equivalent of two-way radios, because that's what you had, and you're in the middle of nowhere, the odds of you getting caught are probably nil. But it still isn't something I would advise you do, because if they catch you, they will find you. I doubt they'll give you jail time, but they will find you. The FCC is a persnickety little organization that would probably be more than happy to do that. Now, that being said, again, GRMS and FRS are on the same frequencies. This is where I have a peeve with this, because you literally can use one on the band of the other practically, and one FRS you can just go and pretty much use as you see fit, same as CB radio, and just have at it. Whereas with ham radio, granted, you can do other things, and that's kind of like what the LoRaWAN stuff is touching into, where you can send packet data over radio waves. It's not a majorly robust thing. You're not sending fucking video files over this, but you can, LoRaWAN has these little weird messenger things that are basically if you wanted to break it down in layman's terms, it's basically ham radio based text messaging, provided that you are within the range of your mesh network. And again, this can cover, if you have a big enough mesh, the thing can cover hundreds of miles. Britain seems to be like massively into this, and there are a couple of guys on YouTube that are like flexing their Meshtastic, which is one of the major projects for getting LoRaWAN out there, and caught my interest in this too. And they have nodes all over the UK, and so you can actually use this as like, the lights go out, these people are going to probably be the purveyors of news and shit. And all the power to them for having some initiative. It's neat technology. And then there's something called CATS coming out, which is another kind of radio that's similar to this. I don't know all the specs. I was reading about that on Hackaday the other day. I've gone into a techie rant and techie splaining, so they kind of go hand in hand though. So to that end, you have, as I consider my thoughts, CATS radio is, I mean, on the barest of analogies, it's basically a different band of frequency, and I don't know what the FCC's regulation of this versus the other. This is assuming, of course, a U.S. specific audience. If you're in a different country, you're going to have your FCC equivalent, and they're going to probably control the regulation of radio frequencies and things like that too. So know your laws before you go and do something dumb. That's it. That's with anything, and the U.S. too. That plays into drones, because if today's the 17th, the grace period for remote ID, which is the FAA's control over drones and over a certain weight limit, yeah, well, that ran out yesterday or the day before. So you are now playing by the rules, or out in the middle of nowhere, like I generally do, or you're getting a drone that has a remote ID compliant transponder that you, in my case, things kind of took care of themselves on a couple of levels, because on the one hand I have a DJI Mini, which is a drone that's under I think it's under 255 grams or something, but it's a dinky little thing. They can't do shit in the wind anyway because it's so light, but very powerful on a clear day. In the wind, it starts seeing its limitations pretty quickly. The other one's a Spark, and that one's not the biggest drone either. It's not like Mavic big or Phantom 4 big, but it's big enough that it can handle a little bit more in the way of wind. But that also puts it over the weight limit and susceptible to remote ID, minus the fact that DJI in their infinite wisdom broke the app and it's no longer compatible with my cell phone type. So I pretty much grounded by that way anyway, so it's a moot point. Should they fix that, I would have to go online and drop about $40 for a transponder, because they have generic ones that you can use to upgrade your legacy drone, as it's now I guess called, and use that as well if you don't want to shit out another $400 for a different drone just because the government decided to fuck with your hobby and make things harder to do, which is what the government's job apparently is to do. So to that end, fuck you, FAA. And as a former Fed, I say that with the most endearing of hearts, because it's because of the federal government when I was working for you that I was in therapy for 2 years. We've covered that. We're not going to go down that rant. But anyway, back to the radio thing. CATS is an interesting emerging technology. I forgot what the frequency and the band range is, but it is another... It just seems like packet radio is something that might be an evolving hobby technology anyway, and it's something that would be useful in the field potentially, so it's something to be maybe aware of. LoRaWAN is something that is, and there's things you can do with it. My old wireless router has the ability to run an open source firmware called WRT. Sorry, OpenWRT as opposed to DDWRT. One is open source, one is not. The open one has a module add-on for LoRaWAN, so it can take your old router and turn it, in effect, into a LoRaWAN gateway. And all your little transponder things, your communicator things, and I mean, you can run IoT, Internet of Things related devices like cameras or solar controllers, things like this, on a network like this too. Multiple applications for the technology. And it doesn't need the internets. That's a whole different rant I'm not going to get into right now. Just to touch on it, the trip to Lowe's where you go to get a freaking fancy dancy light bulb and you got to register the damn thing in the cloud. It's a light bulb. No. Anyway. Why you have to do that, God only knows. The government does not need to regulate what freaking light bulb I have on lamp number 4 in the southwest corner of my living room. That's going too far. I'm not the biggest right-winger, but I will become a very big right-winger if that's expected. At that point, the government can kiss my ass. That's not going to happen. But that's about all I got. I am going to wrap this one up as I rambled through about 10 minutes of tech-related stuff. You should also check out the Sky 360 thing if you're a gear geek, just for the technology. They have a whole section on their website, Sky 360 something something, and no, I'm not shilling for them. It's a neat project to me, and they go through all the hardware that they're using for their little UFO passive monitoring station, which is probably more money than I'm willing to spend on something like that, but it is an interesting thing they're doing. I also don't have the room for that. But coupled with the fact that in my particular neighborhood you probably have too much light pollution in the area to make that a feasibility either. You got to do that out in the middle of nowhere, so you'd have to have this like in the back end of a fucking pickup truck or something. But I mean, if you have one, all the power to you. It's another neat thing you can build on Raspberry Pis, which is a little open source computer thing, and that plugs into daughter boards, motherboards, system boards, sensors, feather boards, and all this other stuff. You can connect if you learn how to solder some stuff, which is a whole new skill set you can develop. And do all kinds of wacky, kooky things like that as well. Somewhere on Facebook I posted the first Cyberdeck I made, the indoor model, which is kind of basically a homemade computer that basically will do what I want it to. But in the meantime, and I'll do that basically, it's one of those things where I did that one solely because basically I can. The new one is going to have more of a purpose in mind, but this was a dry run to see what little caveats I was going to run into, and so far they haven't really been that bad, so I'm going to proceed with the other one, and by end of day tomorrow I'll probably have that done. In the meantime, this is my official outro. I am going to say please like, subscribe, comment as you see fit, and if you're not out in the field, get out in the field. It's good for you, especially as it's getting warmer. But with that comes the warmer weather. Reminder too that with warmer weather, in particular in the Northeast, you have tick season. So permethrin is your friend as long as you apply it correctly, which is on your gear and your stuff, and you do it the night before. Do not put it on you. Do not put it on your dogs. It is actually a neurotoxin. But it does kill ticks dead. Also, whatever your form of DEET, or there's organically natural things you can use too. I don't know how successful they are. DEET works, at least against ticks. Not so much black flies, but black flies are a scourge of a different nature, and they don't make it down to Connecticut yet. Keyword yet. Wildlife does not recognize borders, but I see that from the standpoint of once upon a time there was a, let's say, Department of Fish and Game on the federal level that gave the natural range of the black bear, and they would have had that stopping in New Hampshire. In this neighborhood right around here, you easily have 4 to 5 different black bears. In central, very suburbanized central Connecticut, we have a bear that now comes to our dumpster every now and again. Like a big stray dog in the neighborhood, and he's not the only one. So wildlife, as conditions change their roaming habits, and you don't have static boundaries. So we don't have black flies yet. Anyway, again, I keep doing this. There's a neat little burrow there as I segue one more time. Like, subscribe, comment, make suggestions on what you want to see me do or not do. Don't delve into the woo, because I'm not going to be interested. That's for other people. And as one last little reiteration of that, you can make your own group, and there's a million groups out there for them, not mine. Have a great day, and we'll catch you next time.